Hey there, this is Perch, and I don't know exactly who I'm insulting when I go into this. I know there's some people, but whoever's idea it was to bring Thunderbird back to life, John Proudstar, whoever came up with that plan, whoever pitched that to Marvel, whoever thought that was a good idea, is a fucking idiot. All right, so let me go into sorry for the language, children. Um, in spoilers, in Trial of Magneto #5, but is it spoilers at this point? Everybody in the X-Men is being brought back to life. They're bringing everyone back. And basically, thanks to magic being added to the resurrection protocols, because the idea that we can actually bring mutants back from the dead, therefore never really having any consequence to any mission or anything, it's all fine. It's a constant reset button. The X-Men now have all the subtlety and depth of a video game. Um, they need to be more powerful. So the Scarlet Witch adds magic to the resurrection protocols, and this allows the basically them to resurrect mutants that they couldn't before. And one of those, right out the gate, is John Proudstar. John Proudstar was the first X-Men to die, and has been dead for quite a long time. He's been brought back as a zombie a few times, and I think there's been some time travel shit that's gone on every now and then. But generally speaking, the character stayed dead, and it didn't have any kind of long life cycle in X-Men. The character was killed almost immediately. So they are bringing him back. They are doing a giant-sized Thunderbird #1, which is a fancy way of saying it's a one-shot for Thunderbird. It's going to be written by the all elite wrestling performer Nyla Rose, and Steve Orlando, and that's a hell of an interesting combo. But all right, and First Nations artist David Cutler. And the synopsis here is basically that. Here you go. The ramifications of Thunderbird's recent resurrection sets him up for a bright future on Krakoa and beyond. The world John Proudstar has returned to is completely different from the one he once knew. Looking to find refuge in the familiar, Thunderbird seeks out someone from his past at an Apache reservation and uncovers a horrifying threat to the indigenous mutant community. Will Thunderbird be able to save his people, or will his justified rage lead him astray? So, here's the problem with this, and here's why it's such a terrible idea. As it turns out, you could argue that John Proudstar was basically fridged in order to ultimately pave the way, and I'm sure this was not the intent when he was killed, and it's tongue-in-cheek with fridged. I'm not being serious here. But basically, from that event, they introduced the character of James Proudstar. And James Proudstar, related to John Proudstar, blamed the X-Men for the death of his brother Thunderbird, joined the Hellions to get revenge, then later would go on and have pretty significant character development, joining X-Force, being part of that team, being part of the Uncanny X-Men, going out into space. That character had a pretty rich and interesting history on multiple teams. Was able to kind of just a lot of good stuff for the better part of almost 3 decades. James Proudstar has been a character that Marvel has been able to build up, do a lot of interesting things with, have really great stories, and basically just to have a nice, full formed, complex, struggled, overcame it, went through a lot of different trials, character, everything you would want. The only downside to James Proudstar, Thunderbird, or Warpath is probably the name most of you are familiar with if you've been reading comics for the last 10 years or so, is that for the last 5 years or so, they've done very little with him. And I'm trying to think of the last time we really saw Warpath. He's recently shown up in Vita Ayala's New Mutants book, but just kind of as a background character, blink and you miss in a lot of cases. There's not a lot of depth going on there. But the character kind of disappeared from the scene Let's see, he was in that weird Weapon X team with Old Man Logan, which was very, very forgettable. But anyway, they had some really good things that they did. The last time we really saw him doing much of anything was right about the time that Wolverine and Cyclops split paths. So we're going back more than 10 years, I guess. And the problem that keeps happening over and over, and I guess why this irritates me so much, is that you've got this character, decades of history, lots of character development, lots of interesting aspects to him. Story is compelling. Blame the X-Men for the death of his, of John, and went to go get revenge, and ultimately found the right way. Made peace with his brother's death. A lot of good stuff there. Marvel then forgets about the character. Right about the time, by the way, that Marvel was getting very excited about we need to include diversity in the comics, forgetting, like so many other characters, that hey, here's a character, Native American, Indigenous, Apache. Again, lots of great history, lots you can do with him. But rather than focus on him, I know let's just kind of randomly introduce characters and then promptly forget about them a year or two later. If you go back and you look at the characters that are introduced between about 2014 and 2020 in Marvel, there's a huge amount of new characters that never really got more than a year to 2 years, if lucky, of story. Marvel burned through their diversity like crazy. Just crazy. Meanwhile, again, you've got this character here, lots you can do with the character, and just no time for him. Which brings us to now, where the problem with Krakoa and this entire X-Men storyline is that they just keep vomiting out every possible character, new characters, old characters, bring this character back to life. Fuck it, just let's get as many characters on the plate as we possibly can. And the result is there's almost no depth to any of it. Yeah, I mean, Wolverine, if you've been reading X-Force and even the solo book, that title is close to nonsensical. I know many of you listening right now, you like Ben Percy's take on things, and I think Ben Percy can tell a good story, but even the character that's probably had the most written in the last 30, 40 years or so, Wolverine, is just aimless. They all are. And so when given the opportunity to say, hey, what we should do is let's put a focus on a Indigenous Native American character. Do we have any of those? Forge. Isn't Forge one of those? Yeah, but we've been writing him like kind of a dick lately. Echo. I know. Let's give Echo Phoenix powers and forget about kind of the whole street tough aspect of that character, instead give her the power of a god. That's a great idea. And should we do something with James Proudstar? No, let's bring his brother back to life. The brother who had an issue of a comic to his history. And let's just bring bring the brother back. And screw it. We'll do that. Forgetting again for the fact that James, a lot of his entire personality and thrust as a character was avenging his brother's death. Now his brother's back. So I don't know, James, screw it. You can just hang out in the tiki bar with Blob. This is a bizarre move. And if you read kind of what goes on for John Proudstar, everything that they're doing with Thunderbird could easily be done for James and Warpath. Easily. There's no reason why the same storyline can't be used. It's just recycling characters, and to what end? None that I can tell. I don't know. Again, in the grand scheme of things, not a big deal. It's almost a picture perfect representation of here's what happens when you forget about depth in your character. You instead just recycle these concepts out, and it also just illustrates what a flawed concept the everybody can just live forever, there's no death, Krakoa nonsense. That's a problem. I have no idea where Hickman was ultimately going with this storyline. I have to imagine, based on some of the hints, that it was going to, get the mutants a little bit maybe too dependent on the resurrection protocols and then yank it away from them, or they couldn't do it anymore. And then death has even more meaning because they've been living life maybe a little bit more carelessly. I don't know. Maybe that was where they're going. No idea. All I know is now we're at the point where we're just recycling characters and screw it. But hey, why not, right? I don't know. Am I crazy here? Maybe this bothers nobody, and you're all looking forward to it. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.